Welcome back to the Coach Steve Show, everybody. The Illinois Final Illini took it to Nebraska. They got Nebraska's best shot. They went into Lincoln and came out with a victory over the Nebraska Cornhuskers 26-9. The defense showed up, balled out. The offense did what they needed to do. Chase Brown did his thing. We're going to discuss all the keys to the win in Lincoln and talk about how Illinois, this is their best start in 21 years. They have not started a season 7-1 since 2001. Last time they won 10 games. Last time they won the Big Ten. We're going to discuss all the keys to the factors of that game today on this show. And at the time of this recording, Illinois' number is ranked 17th in the nation, which is probably going to get moved up to 15 at the time of this. Looking at the rankings, they will get moved up. So we're going to discuss all of that. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe button on the YouTube channel, follow and rate it on Apple and iTunes, and wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a comment in the comment section down below, of course. Follow me at Coach_Steve72 on Twitter. And also check out the Belly Up Media Network at bellyupsports.com. Check out all the podcast blogs and all entertainment stuff there for you. Lots of sports, but there's other things outside of sports there as well. Great place to get all your information on everything out there media-wise. So go check all that out. Illinois. They are now 7-1. They are now number one overall in the Big Ten West. They have a game lead over Purdue, who is second. Nebraska is now knocked off. Purdue had a bye week. We're going to discuss the game. We're going to discuss things that maybe people don't necessarily look at who need more love. And we're going to talk about the job that's being done by Coach Bielema and his staff. Nebraska gave Illinois their best shot, in my opinion. Nebraska looked decent for the first quarter and a half, besides the first drive. The first drive, Illinois has a tendency to do this. They have a very good first drive, then they kind of stall out the next couple of drives. But that's because everybody gets settled into the game. The offense looked good for Illinois to start the game off, moving the ball, and then they get the nice pass from Devito to to Isaiah Williams on the mesh, and the mesh goes all the way for a touchdown. Just showing the speed that Isaiah Williams has versus other linebackers. If you put any type of linebacker on him, he is going to win. He's going to win that matchup 10 out of 10 times. I don't think there's a linebacker out there, even with Ohio State. I don't believe that there is somebody out there that's going to be able to guard him. But Illinois got that 26-9 win, starting off the game with that nice drive to Isaiah Williams to show the speed. Then Nebraska's offense, they were moving the ball at first, and then we got the nice interception. Casey Thompson threw a weird-looking pass over the guy, like they were just didn't look like they were in sync and they were on the same page. And we get that nice interception. That just kind of told us how the game was going to go. One thing we need to talk about with Illinois' defense, and I was probably guilty of this as well, there was a couple big plays there from passing, and there was a couple runs there where the running back just scooted through the opening there. If a linebacker over pursued or just broke an arm tackle, which was very rare. In the beginning of the game, that's the only thing I would say about the Illinois defense is I thought the safeties and corners and all that, Chase Brown on them, they fly up and they make tackles. They will have a safety 20 yards. It looks like 20 yards, probably 15 or so yards back and fly down and make a tackle. My only criticism, not even a criticism, just an observation at the very beginning was it just looked like Nebraska's offensive line came to play. And one of my keys to this was the Illinois defensive line feasting on the Nebraska offensive line. And I thought Nebraska's offensive line at the very beginning of the game played pretty well. I'm going to give credit to Nebraska's offensive line playing well. They got their running back, Anthony Grant, some room, 12 carries, 61 yards at the very beginning. Now, again, this is all at the very beginning. The offense looked okay till the interception. Illinois couldn't capitalize on the turnover, and they just allowed certain run lanes. They allowed, Casey Thompson to get some passes. And the big talk was Illinois' defense. They only give up, 200 some yards a game. They only give up 77 rushing yards. They only give up, so many things, and they were starting to give those up. Nebraska was on pace to break a lot of those things that Illinois was giving up. And one thing I think that needs to be talked about is Nebraska has decent players. It can't be overstated that Casey Thompson, if he plays well, is actually a pretty good quarterback. He's a good mobile quarterback. Palmer, their wide receiver, which we'll get to soon, he's a very good wide receiver. They have other guys that are very good wide receivers. It just has never got put together for them, and that's why I said that they were going to be in a downward spiral this year, because they just don't know how to put it together. The culture that's there right now, the no offense to the coach there now, or the interim head coach, because it seems like people like him. But before that, you just saw this culture that was spiraling, and no matter what type of players are going to be put there, kind of like at Texas A&M, where you get all these 5 stars and everything. If there's not the culture put there, it's not going to go well. Flip side to Illinois, Coach Bielema has a nice culture there, the attitude. And so with that, they have good players. And so when it said that Nebraska was on pace to, Illinois only gives up this many yards, they only give up, X, Y, and Z so many times, that's going to happen. And they're taking pride in the fact they only give up. They have one of the number one defense in college football. They're okay. They would rather that happen and not give up the points than allow them to score 30 points, if that makes sense. Now, are they probably frustrated that they were giving that up? Absolutely. Because they were giving up 8.9 points a game. They give up 224 yards through a game. They were giving up 77.9 rush yards a game. They were giving up around 150 passing yards or so. And Casey Thompson had 179 passing yards. So it was those type of things that were getting talked about, or 172 yards passing, excuse me. He went 17 of 15, but he had 2 interceptions, but he also had a passing touchdown. Illinois' offense just started to stall. They were getting decent drives, but then just couldn't convert third downs. Even though Chase Brown had a day, Tommy DeVito had a good game, it was just drop passes. It was Nebraska was tackling well after Illinois scored their first time. And I just don't think people realize that Nebraska does have decent players, but just because you have decent players doesn't mean you have a good team. And some of their athleticism and the good players and the reason why they're recruited to a Division I showed. And I think that I just wanted to point that out at the very beginning, that people were high on Nebraska. We cannot forget that they were high on this Nebraska team. But overall, Illinois there for a second, not on their heels, but they were about to get a game. It was 6-3 at the end of the first quarter. Nebraska came down and had the field goal, which was a win for them against this Illinois defense. And then they get the touchdown from Casey Thompson. He throws the passing touchdown. And then they missed their extra point. Illinois missed their extra point, and then Nebraska misses their extra point. It gets blocked. And then they're up 9-6. And then Illinois doesn't convert to go score. Nebraska gets the ball back with the opportunity and momentum, even though we trust Illinois' defense. But when you look at this and you understand momentum swings, there's a momentum there where Nebraska could come down and kick another field goal, go up 12-6, or they come down and get a touchdown. And then Casey Thompson throws the ball. He hits, and something's wrong with his hand and his arm. He goes out. They put in Smothers, and they also played Purdy later on. But right there, that's a momentum swing. Momentum swing is they come out and they score. Now they're about to get the ball back. Momentum swing. Casey Thompson goes down. So now you have a different quarterback who is mobile, but Nebraska no longer could make that consistent vertical threat. So it allowed Illinois to feast up front. And I gave Nebraska's offensive line credit at the beginning of the game for that quarter and a half. Then the defense started to really kick in for Illinois. I think they were going to kick in no matter who the quarterback was, because as good as Palmer, their wide receiver, was, Illinois took it to him for one catch. And there was some talking there on Twitter and everything. They held him to one catch. I don't care who the quarterback was. Held him to one catch. The defense before Casey Thompson went out you could see up front they were bringing different designed stunts, they were blitzing, they were doing different things up front that they normally do. But you saw it that wears down that O line when you continue to have their big nose guard doing things. They were pulling and throwing. That started to wear down Nebraska's offensive line in that quarter and a half. So just because I talk about momentum swing, I think the defense was going to figure it out anyway. One thing that we do have to bring up, and I'll bring it up at the end. So, we're all kind of not freaking out, but we're like, this is happening to Nebraska. It's okay, coach. I said this in the preview. No matter how bad Nebraska is, that place is packed. It was the 387th, I think they said, sold out game, consecutive sold out game. Regardless if they're there or not, I don't know if sold out means the tickets that were bought, sold, all that stuff. It was sold out. That place was packed. No matter how bad Nebraska is, that fan base travels all over the United States. They are very loyal, and that's still a hostile place to play. And if you're Illinois, you're in new territory for these guys because remember where this program was? We went to a bowl game, 2019 or whatever it was, even though they weren't this great football team. Think about where they were in 2018, 2019, COVID year of 2020. Last year was starting to turn. These guys are still learning how to win and understand, and they are learning and how to go about that. So Illinois was in that weird spot where they have this win streak. They beat teams people probably didn't pick them to beat, and they're going into a hostile environment. Nebraska came out and gave them, Illinois gave them a punch in the offense, but then Nebraska started giving them a punch right back when they were on defense, started giving a punch back on offense, and that was one of the best punches they were going to give. And Illinois weathered that storm. And it wasn't us necessarily. It was Illinois. There was a couple bad tackles there. It was a couple, they just had a better play call. They made great catches. And that's it. Sometimes that's going to happen. Sometimes a team's going to have a really good player is going to make a better play than our guy. And that's okay on defense. Then it turns into, well, then we got to get a turnover somewhere. We have to get them on a negative play. They make a big time catch. They try to run the ball. You tackle them behind the line. So now it's 2nd and 12, 13. That's what Illinois feasts on. And with Illinois' defense, they don't flinch. They don't flinch. They had the touchdown. They had a couple big runs. They didn't flinch. The leadership from Coach Walters and Coach Bielema, the leadership with Brown out there, it was okay. And we'll get to some of the Illinois fan thing at the end that we need to discuss, but it was fun to watch the defense just start then to really feast and settle in and really get after Nebraska there. Looking at the turnover, I want to make sure I get the right number. Nebraska turned the ball over. They had 1 fumble and 3 interceptions. Illinois really took it away from them. They had that fumble there, and I believe in the 3rd quarter, and then they had a couple of the interceptions. They just feasted on it. They held Nebraska to 248 yards. I think Illinois gives up 227 or something, or whatever it was, something like that. And so 248 yards is pretty good. 188 through the air, which is more than what they want to give up. But then they only give up 60 yards on the ground, which you'll hold a team to 60 yards on the ground. You put yourself in a good spot to win. So the defense just did their thing. They settled in. I think that they just allowed Nebraska's offensive line and run game up front to get going at the very beginning, and then they just settle in. Things can happen where they can settle in and take over. And then we flip over to the offensive side. They did their thing. There was a couple plays there where they tried some trick plays. There was a couple drop passes. The couple trick plays, people then tweeted, what are we doing? Stay basic. And I get it, but there were some things I think they want to show on film that they could do for teams that are coming up that they have to now practice for. Couple dropped passes, a couple times where they did force Devito out of the pocket, but he had a game. I don't think he had an incomplete pass till the 3rd quarter, I believe. He was 20 of 22, 179 yards. He averaged 8.1 yards per completion. His QBR was 84.4, which is good, and he had 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. Chase Brown had a game. He had 32 carries, 149 yards, and a touchdown. His longest run was 21 yards. Devito chipped in with 37 yards as well. You did see McCray get in there for a carry, but they said he is better, but there's also some confidence where if he doesn't look right, doesn't feel right, he's still out there and could play. But they're scarce to put him in. Reggie Love the third had 6 carries for 12 yards. To all 3 different types of backs. Chase Brown's the full package, but he's more of a power runner. Reggie Love, you see it with a lot more speed. But if Chase Brown is having himself a game, they're going to give him the ball. But they do start to need other running backs to step up. 32 carries is a lot. He's still the nation's #1 leading rusher with about 4 more games left to go, including a potential Big Ten championship and a bowl game. So right now, 4 guaranteed games, possible 6. 4 regular season games and a bowl game, but possible Big Ten championship there. Isaiah Williams led the receiving with 9 receptions, 93 yards, as long as one was the touchdown for 46 yards. The tight ends got involved a little bit there. Ryman had 2 catches. Luke Ford had a catch. Hightower had a catch. And then Chase Brown had the 3 catches. He had a touchdown reception as well. Later on in the game, they ran a 2 slants and a wheel route. They were in man. They went with all that. Nobody there for Chase Brown on the wheel route and had himself a nice touchdown. So the offense just continues to get much better. And we're not used to this as Illinois fans. We're not used to seeing all the time a complete looking type offense. We have a quarterback that can make these throws, a quarterback that can move around the pocket and make some things happen. We're used to seeing good running backs. We've seen Rashard Mendenhall. We've seen our mobile quarterback, in the past, especially when Ron Zook was around. We've seen Juice Williams. We've seen Shieldhouse. We have all that stuff. But to have a quarterback that can really stand in the pocket and throw the ball and command on the offense and really see a guy that can move in the pocket and run when he needs to, they'll do some zone reads. But he made a lot of good throws, of course. He only had 2 incomplete passes, which is huge at 22 attempts. Keys to this again on offense, I said the receivers have to continue to get confident. They have to get open and make some catches. They had a couple of drops there, but that's going to happen. But to have a running back down there that can do what he does, Chase Brown, I think has to be really talked about for the Heisman. They talked about the reason why he's not talked a lot in the Heisman is because he has all these yards, but he doesn't have all the touchdowns. Whatever. I think for what he's done last year, he had a 1,000-yard rushing season last year. He's already broken that. And there's still 4 games, so he is on pace to do a lot of great things there. Coach Lonnie Jr., his play calling continues to grow. People criticize that as well during the game. The only one maybe I'm not going to criticize, I think it was just a broken thing, was they wanted to do that double pass with Isaiah Williams. I didn't see anybody run down the field for a pass. And so I think that's why he just took off and ran. They did that little stuff thing. I don't know if they just got caught up. I'd have to really look back at the film. That's the only one. To me, that's a broken play where they do that little stutter block and then you go. I wasn't really sure who he was throwing to. I'd have to watch the film on that one. So if I was going to quote unquote criticize anybody, it would have to be maybe that one. Key screens were huge for Illinois. You saw a lot of key screens, and that helps DeVito get into a rhythm of throwing the ball. That's an extended run when they get 3 or 4 yards on a key screen. They did a lot of them to get the first down. If it was 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 3, you saw some key screens, which some don't. You're going to see some type of intermediate pass, medium depth pass or a run. They were throwing key screens. You saw different fun formations. You saw tight ends and not quite the barge formation that we would do last year. But the big thing, and I put it out there on Sunday morning, was the O-line really has to start getting a lot of love for Illinois. The offensive line, Coach Miller, is coaching his butt off with that group. And they're run blocking well. They're able to do different things. They're doing their wide zones. They're doing their inside zone duo type blocking. But then they're also doing a lot of counter. They're overloading with the tight end to all those down blocks, and the counters are really been – that's been a big play for the past, I think, all year, but you're really starting to see a lot more in the past 2 or 3 weeks, including this game. They're doing a lot. There was a couple times they got Illinois on the pass rush, but when you have a quarterback that can move and feel the pressure and get rid of the ball, the offensive line has continued to grow. I talked about them before. They're not young age-wise, but I think experience-wise overall at the University of Illinois, they are young, quote-unquote. and they're continuing to get better. They're molding into what they believe they need to be in their offense. Um, and then Pileski, I always say his name wrong, Alex Pachevsky, the offensive tackle for Illinois. He has 60 career starts, most in Big Ten football history, and he's not done. Like I said, you've got 4 regular season games left, and you've got your bowl game and a possible Big Ten. So you're going to have a lot more starts coming up. So him having the 60 career starts is huge. As of Sunday morning, updating on the football defensive rankings, they're number 1 in scoring defense, they're number 1 in interceptions, they're number 1 in pass efficiency defense, they're number 2 rush defense, they're number 2 passing defense, and they're number 14 in sacks. They have a 77.9 pass efficiency defense that leads the country. The next closest in that is Michigan at 101.3. That is awesome. At the end, Coach Bielema had a quote. He said, I've been around some championship teams. I've been around people that have done things, and this team is on that same caliber, if not better. Probably one of the most enjoyable journeys I've ever been on in my life. And I don't think Coach Bielema is just saying that to blow smoke up anybody's butt. He's not going to say that for us as fans just to make us feel better. He's going to say what he wants to say, and you've gotten that vibe since he's been there. He's been on championship caliber type teams in Wisconsin to win the Big Ten, to win a Rose Bowl, win big time games. And for him to say that is a lot. They have a big time journey coming up with their schedule. Michigan State is in a downward spiral, but that's still a tough game. Purdue's going to be like, it's just a tough way no matter what. Michigan State, Purdue, Michigan, and then Northwestern. And then if God willing, they get to the Big Ten championship game, Ohio State is probably going to be there. Unless Michigan does beat Ohio State, then Michigan gets there and they got to get a repeat. So whether it's Michigan or Ohio State again, it's going to be tough. But for him to say that is huge, and he means that. So that gives Illinois fans some hope when he says something like that. And to reiterate, this is the best start for Illinois since 2001. 7-1 record is the best one since then, where they won 10 games, and then they won the Big Ten and went on, to win a lot. Something else that talked about is how many games it took as a head coach to get to 12 wins at Illinois. It's taken Coach Bielema 20 games to get to 12 wins. It took Lovie Smith 43 games. It took Beckman 36 games. It did take Ron Zook 34 games. It took Ron Turner 35 games. Then it took Tepper 26 games. So Bielema is doing really good things. He and his staff have figured it out how to build this culture, how to build this up. And to reiterate again on the defense, Illinois has outscored their opponents 83-17 in the second half. No team in the country has allowed fewer second half points. So the defense is clicking. The offense is continuing to do what they do. And I think some of the play calling you saw they can do when they know they have that defense on that side. You can take some quote unquote risks play calling when you have that type of defense behind you there. So just great fun things happening there at Illinois to get after Nebraska like that. They hold Chase Purdy to 3 of 8 completions, 15 yards passing. The Smothers only had 1 yard passing. Purdy even held him in check. He ended up having negative 11 yards rushing. Smothers ended up having 6. They had a couple big runs there, but just continue to do what they do. It was fun to watch. To end, I just want to make sure whoever gets this far in the video or the audio, that Illinois fans, that you have to listen. And I was guilty, I think, of one thing I said when I saw a couple things like, oh my gosh, how is this happening to the defense? Same thing with basketball. Illinois fans, we have to understand that we need to enjoy what's going on. And hopefully this becomes a yearly thing. But we also have to be patient, because I think to some people, it almost feels like they are a year ahead. They're probably right on schedule with what Coach Bielema wants, and I'm not going to complain about it, but it does feel like we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but I will take it. We have to trust in him now. Actually, we should have the whole time. But we can now not sit here and criticize and critique. I might a little bit, and I don't mean to quote unquote criticize, just observe. But we can't start making tweets and complain about what's happening to the defense because things are going to happen. There's going to be big runs. There's going to be big passes. There's going to be times the offense doesn't score for 2 or 3 drives. It happens to everybody. It's happened to Alabama. It's happened to, I think the only one it may not have happened to is Tennessee, but Tennessee is on this weird new level that we're not used to seeing from them. And so we have to continue to trust in what's going on. It can't be basketball where as soon as something happens, well, we got to fire so-and-so, and we start complaining. This becomes a yearly thing, and we're in year 5, and we're competing for Big Ten titles, and we're competing for the Big Ten West, and we're, trying to get to these big-time bowl games. And who knows what happens with the college football when the college football playoff does get extended. We're starting to fight for that. Then maybe you can start to say things, but we're not there in the meeting rooms. We're not there at practice. We're not there doing these things. And we have to enjoy this because the fear is some of these assistant coaches are going to go on and get coordinator jobs, head coaching jobs. And then we trust in Coach Bielema to hire and get guys in there to continue on what they're doing. And so we have to not take this for granted and go out there and complain, oh, they gave up a big run. It's one thing to observe it. It's another to start complaining. It's another to start saying things about the coaches or start saying things about these players. The culture being set there is they're already on to Michigan State. That was also reported that they enjoyed it. Then they were talking to them afterwards the game, and they said, Michigan State, we got to worry about Michigan State. We got to watch them play Michigan tonight. We got to worry about this. So Illinois fans, we have to enjoy the ride that we're on and enjoy what's going on. And hopefully this does set the precedent to become a yearly thing. And once it becomes a yearly thing, then we can start elevating even fandom. And you see these other fans of the expectations, because Illinois, we kind of don't know the expectations. Expectation has always been just win a couple games. We've always said, oh, if we go 6-6, we take it. If we go 7-5, we'll take it. Well, right now we're 7-1, setting up to try to, win a lot more games, maybe get to a Big Ten title. And so we have to enjoy it. We have to understand that we don't have the right to start complaining and saying certain things. Let's just we're not flying under the radar as far anymore. This defense has now put people on notice. People now are talking about them. I believe on the Fox, the Prime show, I think somebody said Illinois might be one of the overrated teams. I don't think the defense is overrated. They claim, oh, they don't, you can go this whole route. They're doing what they're supposed to do. And it's just the quick turnaround, the way they tackle, the way the offense is finally moving the ball, running the ball. So Illinois fans, just enjoy what's going on. And hopefully this does become a yearly thing. Like I said, at the time of this recording, Illinois is still 17th in the nation. I could see them going up to 15, which is great to get them to 15 in the nation. And that's what I'm talking about. We expand the playoff and we start competing to get up to that top spots for the playoff. Huge. And we got to enjoy it. Their next game is versus Michigan State, which we'll have a preview for that and talk about all that later on. Again, make sure you guys are hitting the like button, subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Follow it, rate it on Apple and iTunes. Follow me at Coach_Steve72 on Twitter. All that good stuff. Check out all the affiliates in the description below. Thank you guys again for watching and or listening, and we will see you guys next time.